Hey everyone, it is Craig Williams, and I'm sitting here with Jenny Lynn Knopp, and we are doing our final show for the D23 Expo, live from the Diz Unplugged booth and the Diz booth and Dreams Unlimited Travel. This is our last show. Yay! Oh, oops, I thought I pulled my mic out for a second. That's really getting this off to an awkward start. I already introduced myself in the first intro. I don't know why exactly. But for those of you who seem to have missed the intro, I am Craig Williams, and once again I am joined by Jenny Lynn Knopp. And as I've already said, again, because apparently today's repeat day, it's the final day of D23 Expo 2015 and our last live show from it. Oh my gosh, it just seems like we got started 2 days ago.
That might be because we did.
Well, I mean, actually, we got started far earlier than that because we were setting up our lovely booth that we have here, and hopefully one day we'll be able to see more of it because from all I can tell, all there is a TV, 2 couches, a plant, a flag, and that's about it.
There was a whole lot more going on.
There was a whole lot more going on.
It got pretty crazy up in here for a while.
Oh, yeah. We had people sleeping on the couches, and
we did.
You know.
People were camping in our booth.
You gotta love urban campers. I don't know how urban this is, but yeah, no, it's been a great time from the booth. I think we're all going to slightly miss it. I don't want to speak for anyone, but no, it was a good time, and
so much happened in just a few short days.
It did. It sucks leaving, and we thought that the surprises were essentially over today, and well, you and I. One of the bigger panels for today, if not the biggest. I mean, no offense to Disney Interactive. I'm looking at you, Rhino. But obviously, the movie Frozen has taken over the world a million times over, and what better way than to finally celebrate at D23 with Frozen FANdemonium.
A musical celebration.
A musical celebration. And why is it FANdemonium? Because, well, the first 3 letters of fan were capitalized, and so that's how you know to put a little more emphasis on the fan. And so yeah, I had mixed feelings going into this one because, well, I was planning on skipping it.
You were.
I had received press seating for it.
You said, go ahead, JL.
Yeah, I just sent you off. I was like, they're not going to be that bad. Just go ahead and do it. And then I show up to sign in for it, and they're like, oh, you're allowed to film. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stay. I'm going to trudge through it. And
are you glad you did?
I'm actually very glad I did. If not for any of the surprises, it was very relaxing. It was a nice way to kind of close out the panels that I've seen at D23, and I mean,
feel the solidarity in the room amongst all the Disney fans.
I didn't sing along. I'm just going to throw that out there now. It would have screwed up the recording that I had going on, and so yeah, that means there is video footage. And if you press pause on this, which you can't really because it's live, well, you can, but you shouldn't.
You should not.
You can already watch 2 of the videos from the Frozen FANdemonium, but I don't want to ruin the surprise if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, just keep it in the back of your head. We're going to ruin the surprise here in a little bit because there were a few surprises. The first one being Jennifer Goodwin was in the audience.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she was, as well as Charming from Once Upon a Time. They were in the same row.
That was also sarcasm because I could really care less about the fact that they were in the room.
I was excited. Jennifer Goodwin was there, and I got close enough to take a really good picture.
I saw that picture.
Tweeted out on the Diz feed, so if you're not following us on Twitter, you should be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We are at the Diz on Twitter.
And remember, whenever you follow the Diz on Twitter, you're sure to get the best shots of the back of people's heads whenever we see celebrities, because we're too afraid to see them from the front.
You know what, though? I got a good side view of Ginnifer Goodwin.
Good. I'm glad you did.
Not the back of her head.
So, do we want to actually jump into this and get going on it?
I don't see why not. The people are waiting.
Are they waiting?
They are.
Okay.
Out there.
Fantastic. Well, essentially, Frozen FANdemonium was premised as a setup with Kristen Anderson Lopez and Bobby Lopez, the songwriting husband and wife duo behind, well, Frozen.
The genius behind the killer soundtrack of the movie.
Yes, other things like Finding Nemo the musical out at Animal Kingdom, the Book of Mormon, and among many, many more things. And so it is kind of a big deal. And 2 years ago at the D23 Expo, that's the first time Idina Menzel came out on stage and sang it. So it is really fitting that 2 years later, they were able to come back and kind of go through and not only share some of the reasons behind why the songs ended up how they did, but then also
some of the reasons why they didn't end up the things that were cut, the way that the story had changed for Frozen, and how the music had to evolve along with that.
Oh yeah, and we got to hear lots of interesting demos. I was going to say great demos, but
interesting's a better word.
Interesting is a much better word. Not to say anything bad, but to get to pure genius, sometimes you have to trudge through some sludge on the way there. And, well, let's jump right into it. I apologize. Neither one of us were really taking notes besides JL live tweeting, so we're probably going to miss a few things along the way. I know the one thing you tweeted out there was that the musical number developed for Hans's character ended up being dropped because of the revealing his villain side too early.
It was an interesting story. They said they had this whole song where Hans sang, and it was like a little bit of a double meaning the whole way through, where you could listen to the song, and on the one hand it would sound like he was being very taken with Anna and complimenting her, but by the after you've seen the movie and you know how he was, you could go back and hear the song and kind of see how he was actually kind of backhanding her with the lyrics of the song. And for that reason, they felt like it also revealed his villainous side a little bit too early in the movie, so that song was cut.
It was very snappy. It was very, very snappy. That's all I have to say about that. And then, of course, who doesn't love the Trolls?
They had a lot to say about the Trolls.
They did have a lot to say.
Apparently, the Trolls went through a few different versions. The first was they had more of a very hippie, hairy feel to them, and there was a song called Heart Over Head, and it was all about the, feel the love and the energy type of a song. That got scrapped and, thrown by the wayside because they didn't want the Trolls to take on that form. And then there was another song that they had proposed for the Trolls that was all about taking the opportunity to walk in someone else's shoes, and there was a lot of play on that concept. Bunions and plantarwarts entered the song lyrics, and for that reason, that song was also cut. They felt like that was a little bit too ew.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I think the title, if I can remember it correctly, it was like trying on each other's shoes.
Something along those lines.
It was actually a really funny song. I might prefer it to Fixer Upper. That's definitely the weakest song in the movie.
But when they played it, I believe one of the directors of the film came back and asked them after that song had been presented, how did we get here?
Exactly.
Where we're talking about bunions and plantarwarts. So
that's a good point.
That one had to be cut away.
Yeah, and that led in, of course, to the Trolls with Fixer Upper, and
that ended up being the winner.
And so Kristen Anderson Lopez and Bobby Lopez have two daughters, and they are both very talented at singing. In fact, both of the daughters had cameo voices in the movie.
Yeah.
And the youngest daughter ended up actually being one of the Trolls and had one of the better lines of it. So it was cool. They brought her out on stage so that way they could kind of play the demo and then she could sing along with it. And actually, it was a whole sing along with the entire auditorium. So it was pretty neat. But I don't think a lot of people were left feeling super impressed at that point. So
Fixer Upper isn't one of their more popular songs on the soundtrack. It's a bit harder to sing.
And I'm glad that they started off with that song, because then it got going from there, because, well, they went into the development of Do You Want to Build a Snowman?
They did. And with that, Kristen Bell made her entrance onto the stage, and everyone went crazy.
We've seen so many stars this weekend, especially I have, since I've been to all of the big events, and I'm paying dramatically for that with my lack of sleep and energy anymore. But I was actually a little starstruck whenever she came out. She is a beautiful woman, and she's just always so smiley and happy. And
Not only that, but she has amazing talent. I mean, it's one thing to be able to perform something and you do it with a recording, because you can always do it over. You can improve the parts where you messed up. She performed Do You Want to Build a Snowman live, and it was basically flawless. I mean, it was astounding. Yeah,
and the great part is right before they even played that and before they introduced her, they actually played the first demo of Do You Want to Build a Snowman, and they started with the youngest version of Anna for that. And whenever they were doing the demo, they used their very young daughter to try to do that one too. And I'm going to have to put this video up as well, because Kristen Anderson Lopez's face during this was just like, because it was awful. It was like the Kids Bop gone wrong.
It was. Well, they explained that like you said, they tried to use their youngest daughter for the very first demo, but she hadn't even turned quite 3 yet.
Yeah.
And so she couldn't get all of the lyrics, and then she didn't exactly hit all of the notes either. It was very, very cute because of the young voice, but she didn't quite get it. So then they decided that they needed to up it a little bit, and they brought in, it was her older daughter, correct? Yep. And her older daughter was the one who ended up actually doing the demo for the song. And
then Brittany Lee, one of the directors of the film, actually, she had a talented daughter that ended up being the middle version of Elsa in the song.
You mean Anna?
Anna. Sorry, my bad. Anna. Don't flame me out there. It's an honest mistake. So they brought her out as well too, and then Kristen Bell was announced, and that was the first time all three of them have ever performed this song on stage together. So it was pretty good.
Cool. It was cool to see the progression of the performers there in the one song.
Yeah, and Kristen was just a delight the entire time speaking, and the one quote that left you impressed and also left me impressed was about how she was happy to be the first real Disney princess that had that goofy side to her.
That's right. And the reason why she said that was because she felt like when she was growing up, she watched all the Disney films and loved all the Disney princesses, but she didn't feel like she related very strongly to any of them because they were all graceful and always said the right thing at the right time and so on and so forth. And she always felt like she was so clumsy and goofy. And so a realization of her dream was to be able to take this role and create a Disney princess that actually had a little bit of goofiness to her.
Exactly, but also because of her character in the movie, she also needed that breakthrough song, kind of similar. They reference to The Little Mermaid with Part of Your World being Ariel's real breakthrough song. And Anna's actually went through a little bit of changes on the way to get to from the first time for the first time in forever. And so we got to hear a demo from We Know Better, and then we actually got to hear her sing a little bit of the other one, The Spare, and then that one was actually pretty cool too. I understand why it was cut, but then that led into her singing for the first time in forever with Kristen doing the Elsa part of it, and another just standout performance.
Yeah, it was. And I believe they were saying that some of the songs that were cut are found on the
2 CD set. Yes, the 2 CD deluxe edition set. On the back half, they have a lot of demos. And
Right.
some of the ones that we got to hear were on that, and some of them were exclusives for us, too.
And if I'm remembering correctly, the We Know Better was a song that was between Anna and Elsa and their discussion of what a princess should be.
Exactly.
And The Heir and the Spare, which was shortened to The Spare, was all about Anna's secondary role in the kingdom, how, Elsa was the primary one that got attention, and she was just kind of there in the shadows.
Yeah, and Kristen Bell's great and everything, but we had to move on away, and that led us to Olaf, and so there was a little trepidation going into this because yesterday at the live-action films, whenever they got to Beauty and the Beast, Josh Gad was expected to be here, and unfortunately he wasn't, so there was basically no chance that he would be at this one, so you take that chance. But first, whenever we were talking about Olaf, we got to hear the one demo song, Hot Hot Ice, which
was terrible.
It was terrible. It had this Spanish
it was very
feel to it.
Yes, it was very salsa-y.
Yeah, and but
picture Olaf in a sombrero and shaking maracas, and you get the idea.
It was terrible, and that led into coming up with In Summer, and Bobby Lopez was about to sing it, but then they surprised us and said, well, who better to sing it than Josh Gad?
Josh Gad. He took the stage, and again, everyone went nuts.
Oh, yeah, and another, just like Kristen Bell, he came out on stage and he killed it. Both of them had about like 1 or 2 slip-ups. You could tell that they were literally rehearsing probably right before and haven't done this in quite some time, singing these songs all together like that.
Well,
but
Josh also had a little bit of a distraction because Olaf actually joined him on the stage.
Yeah, that was... he didn't seem to like theme park version of Olaf from what I could, from how I was reading the room, but another great performance. And so then after that left one song left, really. And, of course, that's Let It Go.
Yes.
But before that, we heard about the song before Let It Go that really was kind of had that kind of, well, the song was called Cool With Me, and it was an Anna and Elsa duet that ended with Elsa
freezing Anna's heart.
Exactly.
And it was a little bit dramatic and upsetting. So that one ended up having to go by the wayside. And then they talked about how Let It Go ended up being its replacement, how it was written on a picnic table in Prospect Park. And the whole process that they went through of imagining how it would go, standing up and doing the motions of how Elsa would be building her castle as the song progressed.
Yeah, and we even went so far as then to get the backstory and behind how they dropped off the demo tape to John Lasseter, and he was listening to it, and he was standing up and doing all those movements, and it was just... It was a cool story. It was a cool story. And, of course, Idina Menzel was not on hand to actually sing the song, but a lot of people that had a hand in the movie were all around the room, including John Lasseter as well, and the directors of the film, and then everyone who was already on stage before. So
they all took the stage and led the entire room in a sing-along of Let It Go. And it was a pretty moving moment, I think. And then we reached the end, and there was this whole release of snow from the ceiling, and Olaf and Elsa were over in the corner doing all of their interpretive dance, and
yeah, that
it was
did
a
happen.
good time.
Yeah, no, it ended up being a really good event, and as much as I still dislike Frozen, it was a good one. It was pretty good. So that is everything we have to really say about Frozen FANdemonium. But FANdemonium. But before you go, give me your one highlight. What was your favorite thing that you experienced this weekend?
From the whole weekend?
Yes.
Nothing can top for me this weekend, or possibly the entirety of my life. Being able to go up on stage, put a Muppet on my hand, and be instructed in puppeteering by Kermit the Frog himself. Nothing can top that.
I know.
I was 3 years old again, and just, Kermie, I love you, Kermie. It was a moment.
I was ready to push you over and go up on stage myself, but that probably would have looked really, really mean.
It would have. It wouldn't have gone over well.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, JL, for all of your hard work this weekend and bringing all the coverage. I hope everyone enjoyed you in it, but
I hope so too.
But that's not over for us for this show. I'm hoping that I can get Michael's attention.
Would you like me to go get Michael?
Yeah, go ahead and go get Michael's attention, because he is actually the only other person who was part of a panel today. So, and I can, while he's grabbing his notes and getting ready here, I can already say he was part of the Destination D recap panel that took place just a little while ago. And so for those of you who don't know, Destination D was the D23 event that happened in Walt Disney World back in November. Oh my gosh, it seems a lot longer ago than that. So for everyone on the West Coast who didn't have the opportunity to attend that event, they were actually given a little glimpse of the best ofs from all of that event over here, which I don't quite agree that's fair, because we don't get a recap and a best of the D23 events, the expos in Florida every year.
No, you don't, because you don't get the expos out there.
Well, so how was the event?
It was fine. It's fun to learn about that other kingdom that, you know, but and they just couldn't improve on the first one. But it was actually two presentations from Destination D in one. And the first one was from Dave Smith, and it was Walt Disney World, the way they were. And, you know, there's not really a whole lot to say about it, because he relied heavily on some fantastic vintage photographs of Disney World.
Oh, wow.
He talked a little about what Disney World was like before it was Disney World. 1971, he said, Orlando was just a sleepy little town that you drove through on your way to Miami. He said there was nothing there but orange groves. I think Marietta was the only industry there at the time. From Los Angeles, you couldn't even fly directly there. You had to go through Tampa or Miami and then fly up to there. The airport in Orlando was actually just the eastern part of a runway at McCoy Air Force Base, which explains why your luggage tag has those initials on it.
MCO.
Yeah, and the terminal was a Quonset hut, and then. And he talked about how, like in 1965, Walt Disney was starting to buy up land. And actually, the day the 1964 World's Fair opened is the day Walt bought the first piece of property in Orlando. But in 65, all these articles started coming up in all the Florida papers about who's buying all this land. And Walt was having a press conference at Disneyland for some other event, and a reporter for an Orlando paper, Emily Bavar, came to the studios, and she was starting to have her suspicions. And she went up to Walt and said, "Are you the one who is buying up all the property?" And Walt said, "Oh, no." And then he proceeded to give her all these facts and figures about Central Florida. Well, she thought, well, why would Walt know all of this about Central Florida? So she surmised definitely it was Disney. They did give a courtesy notification to Walt when she got back and went to her editor and said, "I'm running with this story." The editor did contact Walt. Dave didn't say this, but it is part of the story, and said, "This is what we're doing." And they ran with the headline that said, "We surmise the mystery is Disney." But Walt had already set up the press conference with the governor and other luminaries, and they made the official announcement that indeed it was Disney purchasing the property. And what attracted him to that area, besides its location, was when he saw Bay Lake with the island in the middle, he found it to be totally charming. And that's why he started purchasing that property. And then Walt passed away just a short time later, and Roy took over. And the rest of the presentation was just really about highlights and on what was finished first, and it showed various stages of construction of Disney World, Magic Kingdom. You saw the open pits that would become the utilidors,
okay, yeah,
and things like that. So it was really very good. then he went through the whole list of extinct attractions. And as everybody went on, and then when he would talk about what replaced them ultimately, he, the only one where there wasn't a really enthusiastic response was the Stitch.
Yeah.
And all that.
Well, it's awful.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it to be.
Yeah. And so that was it. So it was great. So it was a very visual presentation.
Yeah.
The second half was from Imagineer Jason Grant, and his was called Retro Rewind.
Yeah.
And he called it Retro Rewind because it was the same presentation over again. And he talked about how they like to hide like Easter eggs. Like when you watch a DVD or Blu-ray, there's Easter eggs in some of the films. Well, the Imagineers hide Easter eggs or tributes to past attractions in the current attractions. And so he went through what that was, gave some examples, talked about how just like in films, there's the long shot, the distance shot, then you move in for the medium shot, and then you have the close-up or the short shot. That's sort of the payoff. So to give you an example, in Town Square, we have the theater where it's the Mickey's Magic Show now. There's a mailroom that you see, the theater mailroom. And the long shot is the whole mailroom with the desks, and you see, packages and mail and things like that. Well, the short shot then is you see the theater mailbox, and there's letters and all that in all the little slots and things like that in the theater mailbox. Well, the close-up, and this is the close-up are the individual envelopes that are in there, all addressed and all stamped. The Easter egg is that on the stamps, there are images of all the extinct attractions at Disney World. So in the Magic Kingdom.
I remember that one now.
Yeah. And so he went through and really talked about that, about the Easter eggs that are in the rehearsal room of that attraction. Went to Storybook Circus. And we talked about the Barnstormer and again, the various Easter eggs there. There's salutes to Saludos Amigos in there. Why they used Humphrey Bear as a logo, because in the shorts, Humphrey Bear, his appetite couldn't be satisfied. So that's why his logo is there for the candy. And it just went on from there. One of the fun one is Sunshine Tree Terrace. There's the Orange Bird, and the Orange Bird, he left and came back again. When but because they were moving the Sunshine Tree Terrace to a new location, they had to make the poster for it more generic. Because the joke is it moved east, and then in 2 years it's going to move east again. The Orange Bird's going to take over the castle. But they showed the new poster, and they said, what attraction poster does this look like? Because it pays homage to an attraction at Disneyland. And what it turned out was it's our Alice in Wonderland attraction poster. So there's because when you look at the Orange Bird, Sunshine Tree Terrace poster, there's the Orange Bird in the middle, and then there's sort of this swirling that comes down, and there's like these Dole Whips there. If you look at the Alice in Wonderland attraction poster, Alice is in the center, and there's a swirling as if she's falling, going through like the rabbit hole, and then there's flowers and there's characters and all that. It's the same exact layout.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. I don't remember that one from whenever we went there, but maybe maybe my memory's just awful, or I drifted off at some point, or something. Who knows?
And then he said it wouldn't be a Destination D event or an Imagineering event if they didn't have something about Horizons in there. So for those of you who remember Horizons, you could choose your own destination. He showed the video of the Mesa Verde option. And what was interesting about that is you can see how much the technology of video has come since Horizon went away.
We got to see all 3 during ours, though.
Yeah, we only
so
got to see one.
I'm sorry.
I know, but we have a whole expo.
That's true. That's a very good point.
That's coming to an end.
Yes, it is. Any other big highlights from it, or is that about
that
it?
was it.
Good.
That was the presentation.
Good. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and I asked Jenny Lynn the same thing. So, what was your favorite standout thing of the entire event?
Wow. I think my favorite thing was it happened today. I came in a little early when there weren't any guests on the floor, and went around to some of the exhibits. I went into the Imagineering theme parks and resorts one, and if you listen to the Disneyland show, I've been very skeptical of the whole Pandora section of Animal Kingdom. That's my favorite park in Orlando. And, looking at the model and what I heard in Theme Parks and Resorts presentation, and looking at what they've set up, the maquettes and posters and things like that, totally changed my mind.
Yeah, no, it was very impressive.
And then when, of course, who walks in but Joe Rohde when I'm in there, and he and I start to chat, and we talk a little more about it and the land and what it's all about. I mean, I'm really now excited to see this land.
I know. I got to have not as good of an experience in there with Joe Rohde. I mean, he and I just took a picture together, and I said hi and complimented him on his work, and I was still kind of getting over the fact that John Lasseter had been standing right beside me in there, and that totally freaks me out. But no, I'm glad to hear that. That's really good.
What's been the highlight for you?
Oh, what's been the highlight for me? Probably yesterday seeing Harrison Ford. Mm-hmm. I would say that was a one-of-a-kind type thing. I don't know.
Well, that would explain the whip you have today.
Oh, yes, of course. I always walk around with it. I know everything about the live-action panel yesterday was it was magical, between all the great movies and celebrities that we got to see, and then ending off with that Harrison Ford debut, and then also getting to have the first opportunity to hear about the expansion coming, the Star Wars expansion coming to Disneyland and Hollywood Studios. I mean, that's a hard moment to pass up, to know that we were there in that exact time whenever that happened. I always treasure moments like that. So I'm definitely going to be having that one in the back of my head for the longest time, especially while I have that exclusive Star Wars poster that they gave us hanging up in my office. It always just remind me of that time. But I would say that's probably it. But then again, the Silly Symphonies concert today was also pretty special.
It was.
It's just so many good things that happened today. It's really hard to put a pinpoint on what was the best. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that also one of the greatest parts was just getting to spend time with all the other Diz team here, and manning this booth and meeting a lot of great people that stopped by through. It's definitely an experience I didn't think I was ever going to have. Never even imagined it going to be possible. But we put out all this great content for people and did all these live shows and have a ton of videos and photos going up. And I really hope that everyone enjoyed it. So.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I've been getting a lot of good comments on it.
Good. But that is going to do it for our final broadcast from the D23 Expo. And
so, see you in 2 years?
Yes, we will be back in 2 years, and on behalf of Rhino and Tom and everyone else that we've had on the show, I'm just going to speak for them because they didn't really do anything in the evening to warrant being on. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Rhino. But they send their love and wishes and kindness, and yes, we will be back with more D23 coverage during the next event that happens around. But until then, thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll see you later.
Come to the next expo.
Yes, come to the next expo. See ya.
Bye.